Hello and welcome back to another episode of Learning Pod 2.0, brought to you exclusively by Infinity Learning Space. Today we have yet another dynamic personality here with us who is Mr. Bhagya Fernando. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Fernando. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Dumindra, for having me.
Well, to introduce Mr. Bhagya Fernando to you, he currently works as an assistant manager, group risk and control at a leading apparel company in Sri Lanka with over 10 years of work experience, including in internal and external audit divisions. He is also an associate chartered accountant at the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, and he has also earned a BSc in Business Administration from the University of Sri Jayewardenepura. Once again, a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you for that introduction, Dumindra.
My pleasure. Mr. Fernando, let's speak a little bit about the brand new subject where we have CL-25 3 Risk Governance and Audit. Now, we've seen our first ever paper under the new syllabus. The big question is what happened?
Yes. So, Dumindra, actually, the question that you have asked me, I think it's my students, mostly my students are it's a question that they are eagerly waiting for get an answer to. Am I right? Right?
Absolutely.
So, if I before I talked about the question paper itself and what has actually what's the big change now at this time. So, if I give you a short answer, it's a very easy question paper.
Okay.
Right? So, I think that's convincing for most of the students, but let's see what goes. So, whenever there is a new syllabus change happens to Midra, what happens is, especially at the very first paper, most of the students are actually very curious because this is not something that they have really prepared to. And most of the students actually go to the examination hall with some kind of fear in their mind because of the obvious reasons where they haven't prepared for a paper exactly a paper like this. මේ වගේම paper එකක් ඒගොල්ලෝ මීට කලින් කරලා නැහැ.
Exactly.
The first paper that they might got a kind of an understanding for this syllabus is the pilot paper. Pilot paper එකෙන් තමයි පොඩි හරි understanding එකක් ඒගොල්ලෝ මේකට අරගෙන තියෙන්නේ. So they naturally tend to have a kind of a fear. So that we obviously expected from our students as well. But nothing to worry. Actually, the question paper became so much easier, especially for a student who actually studied for almost all the area. That I had to say. Now, this is a subject where you can't miss anything, especially when you have I'm not saying it's a huge syllabus, but there are some deeper areas that the students have to study for. But whenever a student who actually studied most of the areas, they are actually, I'm pretty sure most of my students as well, they found this question paper to be very easy at this time. But let's see, let's discuss more about this one.
Absolutely. And since you mentioned about the pilot paper, I'm just going to jump in and add in another question. A lot of students, like you said, looked at the pilot paper, they prepared with the pilot paper, but then when they went for the exam, a very common statement that we heard was it's completely different to the pilot paper. What are your thoughts on that? And was it actually different, or was it the approach that our students took which was different?
Yes, obviously. From some students' ideas and even in the previous history that throughout the CASriLanka examinations, in some instances, as you correctly mentioned, Dumindra, we have seen some students who actually complain a lot, saying that this is nothing like the pilot paper. And likewise, there are multiple comments that are coming from. But this time, even that we have to appreciate CASriLanka in that aspect as well. So they crafted the pilot paper so good. In my opinion, the pilot paper is so harder than the actual paper.
Okay.
So I believe that's something to be convincing for my most of the students who are actually watching this one. The pilot paper එක ඇත්තටම ටිකක් අමාරුයි.
Okay.
අපි actual paper එකත් එක්ක ගත්තට පස්සේ. But it wasn't so different from based on the from the perspective of the structure and the syllabus area that it has covered. And obviously the pilot paper actually showed the real change that happened through this new syllabus change as well. Because in this new syllabus change, we actually got to know that there are some new interesting areas that is coming out to this new one. For an example, the cybersecurity related aspects and some of the even the emphasis that the CASriLanka is now placing for ESG and related matters, sustainability, those kinds of areas. Now it is being emphasized. Actually, the pilot paper was well crafted to cater that as well. But from the digital aspect, there were not much areas, but there were some slight areas where the CASriLanka kind of hinted the students actually for them to be prepared well for the actual examination that they are going to face. So it's kind of well balanced, and I don't believe that this time with this new syllabus the students actually complain for that aspect.
Okay, that's wonderful to hear. And also, Mr. Fernando, now for students who haven't faced the exam yet, they will see the past paper. They'll see one past paper that is already available from June 2026. But for those students who are facing it in the future, what exactly is the difference? I know you mentioned this a little bit now. Can we elaborate a little bit more on that?
Exactly.
What are the differences compared to the June 2026 paper and the previous syllabus?
Yes. That's a good question, Dumindra. I'm sure pretty much most of the students are very interested in these types of questions, because ultimately this is what they are going to feel, sit in their next examination as well. So there, one of the key difference is that, like I explained, we have to start identifying these differences between the previous syllabus examination papers and this syllabus examination paper. We must talk about the syllabus differences as well. What are the new contents that came into this new syllabus? So as I just explained, most of the the examiners focus is now going towards some of the digital aspects as well. Like I explained, cybersecurity, and even the most theoretical concepts like substantive procedures are now discussed with this digital approach. Right? May substantive procedures කියන එක දැන් digital එකම combine කරලා තමයි ගොඩක් වෙලාවට දැන් examiner එකේ attention එක යන්නේ. මොකද දැන් අපි auditing කියන subject එක and profession එක ගත්තොත් මේක දැන් digital කියන එකත් එක්ක හරිම connected වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. Nowadays we don't conduct actual audits without the use of digital tools. Now the examiners and the CASriLanka is actually very much aware of this one as well. So මේ syllabus change එක කියන එක අපි මුලින්ම අතරම කතා කරලා ඉන්න ඕනේ to identify the differences. And also in terms of the structure of the paper, obviously there are some huge changes. Now in previous syllabus examination papers, we had MCQ questions. The paper actually starts with 10 MCQ questions. Now we no longer see any MCQ questions within the new syllabus structure. So that's, I think there are pros and cons for almost every change that we have. And then obviously the one of the most key highlighted change this time is the introduction of some elective questions. Now in the previous subject examination papers, what we saw was all the questions were mandatory. That's how even the paper is how it's titled. There were 7 questions and all the students have to attempt for all the questions. But in this syllabus, the most speciality that we see here is that the last 3 questions actually, it's elective. The students actually need to select only 2 questions out of them. So there will be 3 25-mark questions, out of which only 2 questions that amounts to 50 marks that students need to be selected. So those are the main key changes that we actually see when we compare the previous syllabus examination and the new examination papers.
Well, that's wonderful. And also, speaking a little bit about the structure and also about the new additions. Now, you mentioned about cybersecurity, and I think something else that we saw was forensic related aspects also being mandatory. Is it mandatory, or has this been tested before? What are your thoughts about it?
So as I explained, Dumindra, there were quite interesting areas, new interesting areas like the forensic auditing. Now, cyber security related aspects we also had in the previous syllabus as well.
Okay.
But not it was not given a very much higher weightage for those areas. The
Right.
cybersecurity, in the business world, we are talking about cybersecurity for like decades of time now, right
Yeah.
now. Now the business world is now understood what kind of an impact that the cybersecurity and related aspects have in their organization, including their going concern related matters as well. Because we have seen even in Sri Lankan context how the business actually gets failed because of some cybersecurity failures.
Yes.
Now this has been addressed for like past couple decades of time, but with this new syllabus actually, Dumindra, I have the question paper in my hand as well. Even in the new syllabus itself, a lot of attention has been given for this cybersecurity aspect.
Okay.
Now, if you look at the question like number 7, I believe my students can actually like turn to their own
Yes,
examination
absolutely.
papers as well. If you look at the question number 7, almost like 15 marks out of 25 marks is actually from the cybersecurity areas. Now, this much of a weightage was not actually given for cybersecurity related aspect. දැන් මේ question paper එකේ මේ සම්පූර්ණ 25ක මාක්ස් 25ක් හම්බෙන question එකක ලකුණු 15ක්ම cyber security වලින් එනවා කියලා කියන්නේ it's like a gift for the students as well, because this is not a very complex area. මේක මේ හරි අමාරු area එකක්වත් එහෙම පාඩම් කරන්න අමාරු area එකක්වත් නෙමෙයි. And then if I come back to the forensic auditing, basically we identify this as a kind of a now a new development. මේ අලුත් දෙයක් විදිහට අපි identify කරගන්න දෙයක්. දැන් මේ ලංකාවේ business world එක ගත්තත් very recently සමහරට students ලාත් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම aware ඇති මේ like frauds වගේ දේවල්, like even in finance company, some of the reputed banks we have seen මේ frauds වගේ දේවල් වෙලා තියෙනවා. එතකොට මේ වගේ instances වල මේ forensic audit කියන එක දැන් emerging topic එකක් වෙලා තියෙනවා. මේක මේ ඉස්සර අපි ලොකුවට කතා කරේ නෑ, but now this has become a very important topic. But I'm not sure if the students have actually got ready for this one, because it wasn't tested much in the pilot paper. But even in the very first paper of the new syllabus, the CASriLanka actually tested this one, cybersecurity as well as forensic audit. If we take the forensic audit aspect, and I'm sure the students can actually see in the question paper, in the question number 2 actually, the entire 10 marks is actually dedicated to the forensic auditing. Now, imagine the impact that the students will have if they miss to study this particular area. So that is why even at the beginning, I told you that a student who actually studied almost all of these areas, it's a very easy question paper for them. And one thing that I wanted to highlight is that we can actually expect this pattern to be continuing in the future as well, especially in the next paper also. There will be some 10-15 mark questions that will definitely come from these new areas, especially even if I didn't mention some of the areas like sustainability, ethics, corporate governance. Those kinds of things are now getting more highlighted in the business world as well. So it's better for most of my students to actually look at this area, study more these areas.
And it definitely will be valuable for them in the future as well, because it's all very practical and very relevant to the industry and profession. Mr. Fernando, I also want to ask you, since you mentioned about ethics and governance and all those topics as well, now something that was also new was the fact that this is an open book examination now. What is your take on that? Can you take us through the shift from closed book to open book, and what does this actually change about how a student should prepare and apply it to the exams?
Exactly, that's a very good question, Dumindra. Even though I wasn't able to, I deliberately did that because I wanted to discuss this in a separately, because this is a very important area. Even in the if we take all the syllabus changes previously and all the auditing subjects that we have throughout the history of auditing at Sri Lanka, at the corporate level towards the middle level of CASriLanka examination, we didn't have an audit subject with an open book examination.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Whenever you refer to some of the past papers, you might see the wording saying that this is a closed book examination. So there were no open book referential materials for the students to actually go through. But if we take the reality and the practicality of this subject, there are actually quite some interesting materials, books in the sense that students should actually like refer whenever they are working as an auditor, especially working as an auditor. They are like very much important for them. අපි දැන් එක්සාම්පල් එකක් විදිහට ගත්තොත් මේ auditing standards කියන එක, like අපි accounting standards දකිනවා වගේම මේ auditing standards කියන එක හරිම important. Even though they were like highly tested in previous examinations, මේ students ලට auditing standards කියන එක examination එකට අරන් ගන්න පුළුවන් නැහැ. But now with this interesting change that CASriLanka has brought up, the students are actually able to take these open book materials to the examination hall along with their like some other like open book references. On the other hand, some of the books like Code of Ethics, right, now it's a very important aspect. And also the Code of Best Practice on Corporate Governance. Corporate governance is a highly testable area. Even in this paper, there are some areas related to corporate governance as well. Now, if I tell you an example, in the corporate governance, whenever we are talking about corporate governance, the most famous topic is the board balance that we talk about. And then we talk about some of the committees that is available within a board of directors of a company, such as the audit committee, related party transaction review committee, risk committee, likewise. Now, there are some highly technical areas in those aspects. For an example, the student might get asked how much of a minimum number of members should be there in an audit committee, right? And then maybe how the board balance should be comprised of. Likewise, there are some technical areas. Now, some students are there who are very capable of remembering all of those things, including the numbers and everything. But for some students, it's not the case. Absolutely. But with this change that the CASriLanka has brought up, actually the students are now able to refer to those open book references while they are writing their examination paper. So I believe, in my personal opinion also, it's a really good change now that the CASriLanka has brought up. And with this change, now the students are actually, especially my students, if they are engaged with my course, they know that whenever I am teaching a particular auditing standards or something related to corporate governance, I am actually showing them the book itself, right? And then I ask them to refer to these chapters or the paragraphs, specific paragraphs that those books actually contain. So that is how the students actually get used to those books whenever they go to the field, whenever they do the actual audits, whenever they want to refer to anything, some technical things, they should have the capability to refer to these materials, not to these tutes and other materials that their lecturers are providing. They cannot carry these things everywhere. And one more thing in this regarding these open book materials, Dumindra, that I really want to highlight, especially for my students, is that this is a kind of a known fact, especially the students who already sat for the examination, including we as students, we actually experience this one. It is that we don't have all the time in the world to look at the open book materials and then write the answers. That's not the case. I think whenever we say that the examination is open book, students actually think that like මේක මට එක්සෑම් එකට ගෙනියන්න පුළුවන්, ඒ නිසා කිසි ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ, මේක බලලා මම උත්තර ලියනවායි කියලා හිතාගෙන ඉන්නවා student. That is a really big mistake that the students are doing. That shouldn't be the case. Whenever I am lecturing for my students, whenever I am teaching them, I am actually incorporating all of the facts and maybe the figures that is coming from those standards and those books into my own teaching materials as well. I'm not asking the students every time to refer to these materials, because at the end of the day, whenever the students is writing and sitting and writing their actual examination paper, they should have the understanding of all those concepts, and they should refer to these open book materials only when there are some slight like things and maybe facts, maybe a part of a standard that they forgot.
Right.
So they can quickly refer to and write it in the examination paper. So I think that is the approach in which every student should prepare for their examination. That is a kind of advice also that I can give to my students as well.
Thank you, because now I'm going to ask you about a few more common mistakes that our students could potentially make, especially with the new structure that you explained in the new paper. Just like what you mentioned about, the reference and how they should not be looking at it.
Yes.
At or reading through it during the exams. Are there any other common mistakes that our students could potentially make?
Yes. So, irrespective of the syllabus, Dumindra, students are actually making mistakes. That is a very common thing that we can expect from the students. Not all of them, but some are like some mistakes. They are like maybe like majority of the students are making so those mistakes, but most of the students are actually right with the experience and the like the delivery of those lectures and what they understood from those lectures, they have now understand what these mistakes are. එතකොට මේ new syllabus එකත් එක්ක කරන mistakes ටිකකුත් තියෙනවා and then commonly කරන mistakes ටිකකුත් තියෙනවා. For an example, like I said, there are some obviously new areas like the forensic auditing, cybersecurity. The first mistake that the students are actually doing in this new syllabus is that they don't pay much attention to these new areas. For an example, there might be a student who actually forgot entirely about the forensic auditing, but look at the actual examination paper. Entire 10 marks actually came from the forensic auditing aspect itself. And obviously some other students, they think that the digital aspects as well as digital approach to auditing is not something important. මේ digital auditing කියන එක එච්චර important දෙයක් විදිහට ගොඩක් students ලා consider කරන්නේ නැහැ. අන්න ඒක තමයි first mistake එක ඒගොල්ලෝ කරන්නේ. Right? Now, especially since I also told that we can expect this trend to be continue in the next examination paper as well. So the students must learn all of these theoretical aspects, including some practical examples as well, because at the end of the day, all of what they will get in all of the examination questions is a kind of a case study from a maybe from a real company also. එතකොට ඒ වගේ real company එකක තියෙන real issue එකක් base කරගෙන ඒගොල්ලන්ට solutions provide කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕනේ. So that is the first mistake that they are doing. And irrespective of the syllabus, especially in a theoretical subject like auditing, and this is not something that is very common in some subjects like financial reporting and financial management subjects, but students actually forgot to pay attention to the keywords or action verbs that the questions are having. For an example, if a question like indicates that only the word state this thing. Likewise, whenever there is a question, the students actually get confused and they write paragraphs and paragraphs of answers. But especially when I am conducting my lectures and when I am conducting some of the lessons to my students, especially at the very beginning of my course, I actually instruct them and I educate them regarding these action verbs separately.
Right.
That is it's like the foundation of the subject. Only when they understand this action verb, they are able to craft a proper answer. Because whenever, for an example, there might be a question saying that for the students to analyze, and there will be like 6 or 10 marks question. For those kind of questions, the students might just write a few lines of their answer, but that is not adequate. When we say analyze, it has a very deeper meaning.
Right.
My students actually know all of these things because I used to tell them the differences between all of these keywords. So that is one another mistake that we can expect the students to actually do. So that is pretty much the kind of mistake, like the common mistake that the students are doing. And obviously they don't understand the weightage that is given for some of the areas that is available in the syllabus, because I actually start doing my course by giving an introduction to the entire course as well as the relevant weightages that are applicable for each of the areas. Some of the students might actually focus a lot about some concept like corporate governance and maybe like small areas. They only study those aspects.
So, some very important points for you to note down as well for your future as well. And Mr. Fernando, I must ask you, what are some words of advice that you have for our students that are here with us at Infinity Learning Space?
Yes, obviously, I believe most of the viewers are actually the students who are actually planning to sit the very next examination paper, and that is the second examination paper that is going to be held under this 2025 curriculum. So there are some advices I obviously already covered, but I thought of highlighting them again as well. The first thing that I really want my students actually is to remember the fact that unlike the very first examination paper that was held in June 2026 examination, the students can't actually expect the next examinations to be easy as that. So that is a very good important point, because like this was the kind of a practice in the previous syllabuses as well. The CASriLanka actually started with some easy question papers, and by like year by year and by batch they tend to make the paper somewhat harder. I'm not saying it's a unmanageable situation, but it's obviously, as I initially explained, Dumitra, whenever a students who actually studied for almost all of these areas, there is no anything that they should need to be fear of. So they should have the confidence, right, 100% confidence to sit for any of the question papers that we coming from the new syllabus. So that is the first advice that I want to give them. And on the other hand, as I already explained, there are some new common area, the unique area that came into this new syllabus, like cyber security, and then there are some new digital aspect, especially even if we are talking about some of the audit procedures, audit planning, audit execution, and even in the communication aspect of these audit findings, there are some digital related aspect. Even when we talk about the risk management, we have to talk about digitally enabled risk management nowadays. Now don't forget about these digital aspect. Now even in your syllabus structure, the digital parts are actually they are placed at the end of every chapter. Like that is the way in which this particular syllabus is now structured. Now because of that practice and the structure that is developed, the students naturally tend to forget some of those aspects, and maybe they don't even pay attention to watch the theory videos and get ready for the examination. But don't forget, students, now even in the very first examination there are like more than 30 marks allocated for the entire digital aspect. Now we only talk about cyber security, there were some other digital aspects. Like there is another question, if you look at the question number 8, there is more than 16 marks coming out of this digital aspect. So that is another thing that I wanted to highlight. And obviously, as previously explained, the attention to the keywords, action verbs, and those kinds of things, and especially students have to understand all of these weightages that is available and pay attention to all of those details, and try to study. Now there might be a student who is actually going to start studying for this subject at the very end, like maybe there are only a couple of months left. Now for those students it might not be possible for them to cover the entire syllabus. Now as my last advice, what I wanted to give those kinds of students is that they should focus on the most testable areas, like the overall audit strategy, audit procedures, substantive procedures, ESG, sustainability. Those kinds of areas are especially testable in this new syllabus structure. So I believe the students actually got at least something out of those advices.
Absolutely. I'm 100% sure that these advices are definitely some very, very valuable advice for our students. With that said, thank you very much for sharing your valuable thoughts, your insights, and for taking us through a very detailed and comprehensive insights about input about the paper as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Bhagya Fernando, and looking forward to seeing you many more in many more podcasts as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
With that said, stay tuned with Infinity Learning Space as we bring you more episodes just like these.